I came out the door and my chainsaw gas was sitting there. And I didn't even think about the next moments. I was angry at myself that I had relapsed. I have 2 adult children. They're adults now, but I, was thinking about all of these things. How am I going to explain all of this to my family? I had been doing so good and I threw it all down the toilet. And so all of this is running through my head. I stopped trying to remember all of the pieces, but I do remember pouring gas on myself and lighting the lighter. And he had to end up.
So it was today's guest, Crystal Raye. Crystal has a hell of a story, and I'm sure you can just tell from that little clip. It's harrowing, to say the least. Listen, the title sponsor for today's episode is the Yatra Trauma Center here in Krabi, Thailand, where I reside. For those of you that are new to the platform, I came to Thailand to start my healing journey at Yatra, where I experienced just an amazing, life-altering experience there at their residential treatment program. I highly suggest you check it out. You can learn more about them and see a bunch of episodes that Mike Miller, the head clinician, has been on if you go to a2apodcast.com/trauma. And in the meantime, here's the show. Hello, everybody, watchers, listeners, supporters of all kinds. Welcome to another episode of the Ash Toss Podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFlange, Chris Horder, whatever you want to call me. Checking in from Krabi, Thailand, halfway around the world in virtual studio. Joining me from Oklahoma is my special guest today, Crystal Raye. How are you doing today, Crystal?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming. It's, I've been looking forward to this. I know we had to do a reschedule there. Just no internet randomly. That was shitty. So yeah, but that's life in Thailand. It's the power and the internet can both be less than reliable sometimes. So yeah,
always a fun adventure and experience, but
yes,
always everything in perfect time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so why don't we get into it here? I do like, and I never discussed this with you pre-record. I don't like to spend a lot of time doing the addiction story, though in this case, I think much of your story is going to be very relevant to get to a place where you are. So why don't you just kind of take us back to when, substances, alcohol, whatever became a part of your life, and kind of run us through that, if you will.
So to be honest, I was an functional addict most of my adult life. Yeah. And about 5 years ago, I really started to get serious about my recovery. And well, not 5 years ago, let's back up a little bit, probably about 6 years ago. And I was in intense outpatient treatment 4 times a week and was doing really well, but had a moment where I had a relapse. And
can I ask what your DOC was back then?
Lots of things, but mostly methamphetamines and heroin.
Okay.
And and I drank a lot, and so the combination of the 3, and whenever I could, and just to numb the pain, numb the mental anguish that I was going through. And
no kidding, eh? No kidding. Okay.
But
So sorry to interrupt you, but you can.
Most of my adult life, I was a functional opiate addict. Functional opiate addict. So I took pills a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Got you.
And then it progressed.
How does that start for you? I know so often, and you'd be right around that time where that would have been a painkiller situation that led to that, or was it recreational?
So what started my opiate addiction was I was prescribed pills while I was pregnant with my second child for back pain. Okay. And I took them as prescribed the home pregnancy. And then once I had my child and I didn't have the prescription anymore, I had the habit already. And so I had friends that got pills regularly for their own chronic pain, and they would sell them to me.
Of course.
And so I would, it was just it was so like going to the grocery store and buying fruit. It was like, in my own mind, like I could afford it, and then my kids were taken care of, and everything wasn't hurting anybody. So it just that progressed for about 10 years after that.
Okay.
And then my addiction grew into, I went through a horrible divorce in that time, and then I started using methamphetamines, and then when the methamphetamines weren't working, I graduated to heroin.
Hey, just a quick interruption for the all too important PSA. Today's PSA is brought to you by Families for Addiction Recovery. They are an absolutely free service. They offer support to family members of people who suffer an addiction. It's absolutely amazing. Check them out, guys, at farcanada.org. And here's your PSA.
Hey, what's up? This is Chad from the Valyear Show. I don't carry a bag around that doesn't have at least one of these or one of these in it. And I carry them because people are dying and dead addicts can't recover. So I don't care how you're finding recovery. I don't care what fellowship you belong to. I don't care if you're using harm reduction. Let's take death out of the equation. Let's stop people from dying. More love, less judge. Peace.
Weren't working. I graduated to heroin.
Okay. Yeah. And you were in Alaska for this, correct?
Correct. For most of it, yes.
It's something interesting. We used to do Memorial Monday episodes quite a bit on the show, where we'd have a parent or another loved one come on and kind of speak about some of that they lost to the battle. And what I came to find out was that at that time, and we're only going back about a year, Alaska had the highest overdose rates in the country, in the United States. Yeah, right. Which is kind of crazy when you think about that, but you think being a little more remote that it'd be a bit tougher to get up there, but for whatever reason their overdose rates are considerably higher, so I would assume that their usage rates would align with that, right? But that is just an assumption.
Right.
So
It's I was surprised at how easily accessible it was up there, being how remote everything is, but it's everywhere, and even in remote areas of Alaska.
Absolutely. And the combination of meth is, I was never an opiate person, but I did get into meth for my kind of the last portion of the season. The combination of both fentanyl, not heroin, but actual fentanyl and methamphetamine, I think is the perfect storm for horrible things to happen. Right? You got one drug that people will do literally anything for, and then another drug that will keep them awake for 3 weeks at a time doing it. And there you are, right? It's just
right.
Awful. It's perfect storm. How I often refer to that. So anyway, I guess I did need to interrupt you because I interrupted you, but please continue with your journey and we'll get back into that.
So I was in outpatient treatment 4 times a week and I relapsed. I was in that time, I was also not taking care of myself and really enforcing my own personal boundaries for the people that were around me or the people I was choosing to surround myself with. And so in the days that led up to my fire, I'm not sure how much of my story your audience would know, but after a drug relapse, I tried to end my life by setting myself on fire. I didn't think about the next moments, and I'm very thankful to still be here. I haven't had the balls to... Go ahead.
Can I ask, were you actually high at that point, or had you come down and it was...
I believe I was coming down. I was sleeping, and somebody that had abused me as a child knocked on my window. So I was sleeping. I was awoken by this predator in my life watching me sleep. So I was triggered there. And he was already told not to be on my property. But he's a family member, and that's a whole nother story for another day. But I came flying out of the trailer that I was in, and I was very angry. I know that I had been using drugs with him in these previous days leading up to that, so it wasn't like I hadn't seen him. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say I wasn't supporting my own boundaries by not keeping people that made me uncomfortable out of my life anyway. So there was other areas in my life that I allowed him to be in because he had a vehicle, and I would just call him when I needed him to do something for me because I knew he would, even though
of course
it was just I don't even know why I would reach out to him, but I knew he wouldn't tell me no. And so that in itself, anyway, I don't know why he was there that day, but I was pissed off when I seen him as soon as I seen him. And I came out the door and my chainsaw gas was sitting there. And I didn't even think about the next moments. I was angry at myself that I had relapsed. I have 2 adult children. They're adults now, but I, was thinking about all of these things. How am I going to explain all of this to my family? I had been doing so good, and I threw it all down the toilet. And so all of this is running through my head while he's there and I was pissed off, and I don't really understand what I stopped trying to remember all of the pieces, but I do remember pouring gas on myself and lighting the lighter. And he ended up putting me out. We had no running water, and there was a tote of like dirty laundry that had been rained on sitting there. And he poured it on me and like smothered out the fire and took me over to my uncle's house, which is about a quarter of a mile down the road. And they called the EMS. A helicopter life flighted me to Anchorage, and in Anchorage, they stabilized me and then life flighted me to Seattle. And I spent 5.5 months in the Seattle burn unit, and 3 of those months I was in a drug-induced coma. And for the first 3 weeks, I was under an assumed name because they weren't sure if that person that put me out did it to me or if I did it to myself, because of the extenuating circumstances of the abuse that had happened before. And so it was really traumatic for everybody. I was in a coma. They didn't know. My family did not want to believe that I would do that to myself. And like my family did not want to believe the person that put me out. And my mom came into the hospital room when my organs were failing. And this is the hardest part of my recovery, I think, was knowing that at any moment I could be my last breath. And my mom begged the doctors to let them talk to me. She knew that I couldn't speak, that I was in a lot of pain, but she begged them. She said, if she might not make it through the night, I need to talk to her, please. And I remember her walking into the room and saying, Crystal, I know that you're in a lot of pain and that you may not be able to tell me in full words, but I need to know. I need to know if you did this to yourself or if somebody did this to you. And all I could do was shrug my shoulders and say, I did it. And that was the hardest thing for me, because I knew at every part of my mom's being, she wanted it to be him that did it and for somebody to pay for it. And I knew in that moment that the Lord was giving me a choice to take the higher road and just to be honest and let them all know, yes, I was fucked up. I fucked up and I am taking accountability, but there was extenuating circumstances that I still don't know. And I stopped making myself try to remember, because there's a reason my brain doesn't want me to remember. And the facts are the facts. And it's a hard thing to share. But in the moment, as soon as I lit the lighter, I heard my higher power tell me, Crystal, you don't get to choose. And now you're going to be in a lot more pain. And that's the only thing that I remember after lighting myself on fire, and knowing like that I had to tell the truth from there on out, and knowing that I may not see tomorrow. How do I want to be remembered, as a liar? Or like, I didn't want them to be able to find anything out later that, that I lied about, even especially to my mother's face. But it's been really hard for my family to accept that I would do that. And so they still, to this day, even though I'm doing so well now, it's hard for them to look at my face and know what I used to look like and accept that I'm still this beautiful woman, but I look a little bit different than what everybody thought I would at this point.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm honored to be able to share how I turned my ashes into awesome, because like that's part of why your podcast caught my eye. That's part of why your content catches my eye, because I relate to it in some way. And then I see some of your posts and it gives me like an inappropriate chuckle, and I'm like, if you cannot laugh about your past, like if you like, that's how I had to get through it.
What was that comment you had made? It left me speechless and got laughing all at the same time. What was it?
So, I also started school for digital marketing. And so because I'm online, I can't really leave the house. And there's a lot of burn survivors that are afraid to try things because our skin is so sensitive and stuff. And so I joke about a lot of things, but I say, as a digital marketer, I can tell you that I tried cremation once, and it's a 1 out of 5 stars, and I don't.
And just like that, we're all going to hell for laughing at it too. So whatever, right? Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
And then there's another little joke that I like to say, because like
Fire away. Let's have it.
throughout my injury and lots of I've had more than 30 surgeries. And on Christmas Eve, while I was in the ICU, they removed my finger. And so I have one less digit.
Oh, wow.
And I say, want to burn one? I did.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And so it's kind of inappropriate, but they took it off. That was the hottest point of the fire, and I burnt one of my digits off.
Wow. That'll happen, hey?
But I also am a peer support volunteer now. Like everything since my life since that day is so much better. And that's part of why I wanted to share my story, is because I, at one point, didn't believe in myself enough to want life. And now I wake up every day when the Lord opens my eyes, and I'm thankful for this beautiful life that I have, that I'm gifted with. And I dedicate parts of my day to the people that donated their skin to me. I dedicate parts of my day to the burn unit that saved my life. I dedicate a mile of my day to the burn unit every day. And I go move my body for a mile every day and just have a set of daily operations for my own self-care that have helped me. And so I have tried to share those with my audience and my followers and supporters as well. Wow. It's just all so much different now than how I used to live my life.
No kidding. So I know that obviously, 5 years ago isn't your recovery date. I have to ask, in completely ignorant to all things burn, especially, anything past like maybe a 2nd degree burn, right? So I have no idea. I can imagine, I can try to imagine, I should say, that the pain was unbelievable when you did, when you were finally woke up from whatever was going on there. How does that fit in with you being an opioid addict?
So it was excruciatingly painful. They say a burn is the most painful injury anybody can sustain. And for me being...
sorry to interrupt. I watched a guy they used a cordless drill, I think it was a DeWalt, drilled a hole in his shin bone to give him IV fentanyl because he had 3rd degree burns on his leg. Right. So that that kind of pain, I think at that point when I saw him be relieved about having a hole drilled in his shin bone, it was like, okay, that's pain, right? When that's the point of relief for you, right? So I guess I shouldn't say I have no idea, but it's certainly not the idea that you have. So continue though, please. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's the craziness that they have to go through to relieve the amount of pain. Like I was on methadone, and I can't even remember all of the medications, but they used to come in like 2 hours before my 1 hour shower every day to give me extra medication. So I was extra drugged before they started scrubbing my skin to where it bled profusely. And they were getting it down to an hour. So usually it would take like 2 to 3 hours for them to scrub me. And like they can only put you out so many times a week, or so many times every for your brain to be able to catch up to the drugs that they're putting you.
Of course, yeah.
They can't put you under that often. So like they were putting me under every 3 days for a surgery. And then like once a week they would put me under for like a deep cleanse is what it's like. They would put me out so they could scrub me even more because my skin all over my body was necrotic. And if they didn't scrub that off, I would have had more amputation. It would have gotten worse. And so I can't even describe it. And the pain that I go through even today, even though I'm healed, like I still have parts of my skin that split. I have like different things that I have to think about every day and will have to for the rest of my life. 80% of my sweat glands are gone. So I overheat in an air conditioned building.
Wow.
Even when I'm outside, I have to like put a timer for like 20 minutes and go back inside. And a lot of times, if you're like in a vehicle that doesn't have air conditioning, it could take you more than 20 minutes outside to get there. So
Yeah.
I could like be mindful about everything I do and how far away from the house I go and how far, if I can safely be there and back within that time frame without having a medical event, because I live in Oklahoma. It's not always like 100 degrees here.
Yeah.
But there's lots of little things. And so the pain and being an opiate addict, it's for a long time after when I got released, I would tell people, look at me. I'm never going to be sober and nobody should expect me to be. And that's how I like was. And I would surround myself with people who would allow me to relieve my pain any way I wanted to after my injury. And then because I'm on disability and I get a check every month, I would surround myself with people that would want to use up my check and then leave me high and dry as soon as it was gone. And that was the cycle. And until I decided I've had enough. And my family had enough. And I had one friend that lived in Oklahoma that I had never used with, and he offered to send me a ticket. And he did. And so that's where I live now. I have since October of 2022.
The timeline, and again, because our journeys are so similar, we talked about this pre-record, right? But like we are like a week apart in our recovery dates. So I'm trying to like imagine all of this being so recent for you, and I can relate to that part of it anyway. So, so you moved to Oklahoma.
Yes.
What's recovery start to look like? This is where things I like to get into it now. Right? This is, as much as the addiction stuff is super important, and yes, we do have to cover it, but I really like talking about recovery. So let's talk about recovery. Right.
So recovery for me started to look like just being honest with my medical team, getting when I moved here, I didn't know anybody but the person I live with, and he works, and I was just, the expectation was for me to stay sober and to get hooked up with the burn unit here and just a medical provider here that could help me navigate getting some reconstructive surgeries and stuff. So I had 4 reconstructive surgeries last year.
Are you still sorry at this point, just to keep us apprised at current here, are you being prescribed opiates for the pain?
No.
Okay. So is that because of the addiction or because they felt you didn't need them?
Well, it's for both.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Sorry, continue.
So I was real with all my providers, and they were real with me. Like all of the surgeries and things that I had to have done could not be done without being prescribed medical or being introduced with opiates into my system again. And so last year I had my surgeries, and I was very closely watched and really like communicated with my providers in a way that they were willing to give me whatever I needed and to communicate with me. Like they sent me home with pills and I gave them back the next week. Like I was like, okay, they trust me enough to have them if I need them. And if I don't, I'm just going to give them back. And I watched the bottle on my counter, and I was just like, I'm bigger than this. And I like, fuck you, I don't need you. And so I took them the next week. I just took them back to the burn unit and had them dispose of them.
That is an amazing kind of strength right there, I will say. Good for you.
I mean, it was hard. It was like, especially when like your doctors are giving you the go ahead, and I'm like, I really
we're addicts, right? Like we're usually looking for resentments, never mind, some sort of, validation that we're allowed to, right? Like, oh my, mm-hmm. I can only imagine how hard that would have been to, Well,
and to be like, I really had to change my whole environment to get clean. And so I'm not a 12-stepper. I did have done some of the 12-step stuff, and I had a sponsor for a little while who's a burn survivor too, that I still talk to, but we don't do the steps. But it was just, that's my own personal
I'm not a
my
12
own
step journey
personal
or 12
thing.
stepper myself either, right? So
But
I
if it
can
works for
relate.
you,
Yeah.
great. It's just not
Yeah.
something that worked for me. And but sorry, I got distracted. My whole recovery journey is that whatever works for you. If I'm feeling like I need a meeting, I go online to the 24-hour meeting, or like I look
Yeah.
at you guys' posts and like Hope Shot and Hard Knocks Talks and Travel
Yeah.
Testimonies. Like
Yeah.
I connect with people online in the recovery community that have a little bit more sober time than me, or maybe
No
who are
kidding.
struggling with their first 90 days, because I always told myself in the beginning, the first 3 days was the worst, then it was the first 3 weeks, and then it was the first 3 months. Once I got that first 90 days, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the soberest I've been in my whole adult life. And
It's funny.
then
Our journeys are so similar. So similar. You just did a couple name drops there. So Chantel from Trap House Testimonies and
mhm.
I actually lived like the trap house that you see in her logo there. It's actually a block away from my last address when I lived in Regina before I got clean, right? So
Wow,
we're actually very close. Chantel and I talk daily,
nice.
right? And of course, Hard Knocks Talks is in the same part of the world, so that's another one. It's funny that I'm way the hell over here now, but it is what it is. Another person to watch, and I don't know if you have or not, is Haley.
Yeah, I
Haley
do.
Delashman. Yeah, so her date is very similar to ours as well. It's not far off, right? So
Hmm.
and her journey is somewhat similar to yours as well. She woke up in a hospital after essentially dying, and so now she's navigating the liver transplant scene for what that is, right? So
I
yeah,
just learned that about her story. I did not know
yeah,
that she was on the liver transplant list until recently. And so lots of prayers, and
yes,
like
yeah,
anything is possible. And
mm,
it's
mm,
amazing how much we can accomplish when we have just one person that believes in us. And
right. Who's that person for you?
my children.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, yeah, what
Yeah.
a great answer. What a
So
great
yes,
answer.
my children. Actually, so my youngest was 15 at the time of my fire, and my oldest was 20.
Okay.
And mom guilt is real. And I feel, that's probably my biggest regret about my injury, is that the moments that I stole from my children. But I know that they are seeing how much I am doing and growing now, and I have a better relationship with them now than I have ever, even though we don't talk as much as I would like us to. They're adults and they have their own lives, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
they
yeah.
have their own path of healing from this as well.
Yeah, of
But
course, of course. Yeah.
I was actually just able to I went to Hawaii for 4 days in July to
Okay.
celebrate my 21 months being sober with my youngest son. And we
Okay.
celebrated it in Hawaii together, and he lives there. So it was awesome.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Wow, wow. Okay, that's wonderful. Hawaii in July. That must have been hot.
It was not as hot as Oklahoma.
Oh yeah, yeah. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough. Okay.
It was
I
like
guess okay.
85
No,
every day.
that tracks. That tracks. Says here in Thailand, which would be similar on the equator, I guess. July is certainly not the hottest month, right? So it goes back to April, I guess, would be about the hottest it gets here. So
Wow.
anyway, sorry to get off track on you there. It's your children, your people. Where are we at? Your recovery journey. So you decide to get clean. What have you been doing then to, if not 12 steps? And like myself, I'm not a 12 stepper either, so I can relate to that. It's funny how many parallels there are. If not that, what is it? What is it that, like, do you work a program of some kind? What are you doing?
So I started learning digital affiliate marketing, and I have a high performance business coach, and I have like a small pod that I meet with on Mondays, and then we have our big group that we meet with on Fridays. And
Okay.
it's just like we call it our accountability groups, and we just talk about like what we're working on for the week, for our business and how we can support each other. And it is different than like the groups, because we're not talking about addiction, but it's a whole nother little community of people that I can say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. And like, we talk about imposter syndrome, we talk about the struggles with tech, we talk about the struggles with personal development. And
it's all relevant, like right across the board, of course, right? So
right. And so we're all in different like areas of the world, and we're all doing different things online with our business. I'm pursuing public speaking and things like that for the visible difference and mental health community. And there are other people that are pursuing like real estate investing, or they're trying to create another community for their sobriety journey. And some stay-at-home moms that, are trying to make money from home as stay-at-home moms. And we're all trying to build our audiences on like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. And so talking to other people that are on the same journey, learning the same kind of things is one of the ways that I stay sober. And
cathartic, for sure, I would think. Like
I just share all the little milestones I go through with them. And it's just been really helpful to have this little tribe of people that support me, even when when I don't believe in myself, they'll be like, Crystal, you got this.
Mental health. I mean, you've been through so much. Have you, like, has therapy been a part of your journey at all? Like so can you tell me what kind of therapy you've experienced?
So I went to counseling once a week for a while. When I was in the hospital, I had like a team of psychiatrists come meet with me at least once a week, if not daily. And I also, so through my peer support journey, we have a support group like twice a week through it's called the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors. And we have psychiatrists and different counselors, different medical providers in the burn community that come in and talk to us, and have different public speakers. And that's how I also connect. But I don't currently go to therapy on a regular basis. But if I feel like I need it, like I have a good rapport with my counselor. And so if he doesn't hear from me, he knows I'm doing well. And like, I just reach out when I'm struggling, and I really don't feel like it's something that I need on a regular basis because of the community I have surrounded myself with. If I didn't interact with people on a regular basis, I would definitely be going to therapy once a week.
Yeah, fair enough. Right. I get there's another parallel, because I'm essentially, most of my life is lived through the computer and through online, so I can totally appreciate very much what you're saying. Of course, I came to Thailand to receive trauma treatment, but that's a whole nother story, right? Yeah. So you're sober. You got almost 2 years in you now. It's just amazing. Congratulations on that, by the way. Congratulations on 22 months, right? And that is, I'm sorry, tomorrow. Tomorrow. So I'm going to try and have this out for your 21 month then, this episode.
Wonderful.
It's absolutely amazing. Let's talk social media. So you've got a few things going on. TikTok, you've mentioned. You got TikTok?
So I have a TikTok, and I have a YouTube channel. I have Instagram and Facebook. I started my YouTube to document my progress as I navigate the ups and downs of permanent disability and rebuilding my life after my traumatic injury, and just trying to learn what life looks like for me. And so I've been sharing that pretty consistently online for the last 17, 18 months.
That's a grind, eh?
Oh, yes, it is.
Isn't that a grind? Oh my, yeah. It takes so much time to
it's really hard to keep up with you. I'm like, oh, you have a few groups. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine, because it's a lot of work. Social media marketing, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is, right? I also have the Sunny in the Sidecar page. I don't know if you've seen that with dumbass here. Yeah, I'm talking about you. I have Sober Savagery, which is another page that I've just recently set up. I did that one because I have sponsors for the podcast, and I can't rightfully post all the humor that I do. So on a page that's associated with them, so I set up Sober Savagery to keep like a wall between the worst of the worst. And even then I find myself though kind of taming, like, so should I? No, I won't post that, right? Some stuff's just in bad taste, right? But yeah, no kidding, right? But those are the two main things anyway. I don't do TikTok at all. How is it going for you, if I can ask? It's a grind, like it's a real, so I'm genuinely curious. Like, you've got about the same amount of time I do into that, maybe a touch less from the sounds of it, but is it growing well for you? Is it frustrating? Is it like, where are you
Oh,
at
it's
with all
frustrating every day. I feel so. I like. I have had experience with computers and cell phones and stuff, and I'm like, how did I turn into my mom about the tech and the computers? And I feel like an old lady about how frustrated about technology I am. But it's only because I don't know it. And I'm like, okay, I gotta force myself to sit down at least for like half an hour to like learn it, and because it's just repetition and to find out what the buttons do, and you know,
Yeah.
and so
That's funny. That's funny. I often say every time I touched my mouse for 6 months, it was a learning curve. Okay? And we didn't keep up because we were checked out in active addiction. Right. So when everyone else was like learning this stuff and just kind of coming to them naturally, we were off getting high and doing our thing. And then all of a sudden you're trying to catch up to everybody. And that's why you feel like your mom. Right. Because I
Right.
went through the exact same thing. I've been a tech guy my whole life. Right. Latest and greatest, this, that, I'll figure it out. No problem. And then all of a sudden, what the what's going on? Right. So yeah, I can relate to
Right.
that. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one, but yeah, and that's exactly it. It's like I purposely didn't have a cell phone. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need an electronic leash. Nobody's trying to get a hold of me. Nobody wants to talk to me, and I don't talk to nobody. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to have to answer it if it rings. So
Yeah. Right.
I just
And
didn't
now
have
here
one.
you are trying to make a living at
Right.
with what people are holding. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. Where's most of your activity at? Like, what platform are you kind of doing the best at right now?
I think Facebook and YouTube, they're both growing pretty fast. I want to say I have about 800 followers on Facebook and 600 on YouTube. But really, in all of, like, just in sharing my story, the connections that I have made within the burn community have helped
Totally
so
powerful.
much.
Yeah.
So I didn't
And the recovery
realize,
community as well. There's a lot of grace given by a lot of people. It's amazing. It really is. Right. Like it's, you've got the Haleys and the Chantels of the world. You've got Sonia Johnson, Jamie Tall, Benjamin Lerner, Matt Keegan. I could go on and on. Right. These are all like amazing people who will just help you for the sake of helping you. Right. And to help that's just who they are. Right. So we can certainly talk more offline about maybe some things that might help you as far as, what's worked for me anyway.
that'd be awesome.
But I can tell you, let's make a metaphor about recovery. In the early days, you struggle so hard just to keep sober, right? And then one day it just clicks. You're like, okay, I get it now. It's the same thing. So you're at 800 followers. You'll be at 1,000, then you'll be at 2,000, then you'll be at 3,000. You go, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Right? Like it just happens. You know what I mean? Because growth compounds growth. So there's some math and stuff to that, which I'm sure you've more than covered, right? But just like recovery, where, one day you're struggling just to stay sober, and the next day you're focused on, hey, how can I continue to grow as a person? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of that same idea. If I can, if I can bring a parallel like that to it. Yeah.
But thank you. A lot of things, one thing I try to remind myself is like, what would I expect out of a toddler? Because I'm 22 months sober. That's still toddler in my recovery. And so not to use it as an excuse to like make just to be lazy, but like I can't expect more of my recovery than what is there. And I don't know what I don't know, and I'm just thankful to be given another day every day to keep chasing my dreams and whatever that may be. And try not to chase the numbers, because the more I look at, like, if I compare myself to others, I will be in my head all day. And my path is unique to me, and everybody else's path is unique to them. But how can we all help each other? Yeah, like you said, like there's maybe little tools and tips and tricks that I don't know yet that you could help me out with. And that's amazing. And that's how I try to arrive online, is how can I serve the people that are watching my content best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes I have to give myself a pep talk. So I'm going to just record it and give it to the world.
No kidding. No kidding. Hey, no kidding. Listen, Crystal, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. We'll move into the final segment, and that is the daily gratitudes. And today's daily gratitudes are brought to you by AARC. That's the Alberta Adolescent Recovery Center. They're doing some amazing things with a peer-to-peer support system for adolescents. They have even an option where parents can compel their teenagers that are suffering with SUD to go into treatment. I think is absolutely amazing. We need to talk about them more. You can learn more about them at arc.ab.ca. And here's your daily gratitudes. And so that is my favorite part of the show. What are you grateful for today?
My children, my community, and my sobriety.
That's a great list. That's a great list. For myself, it's another connection with another recovery content creator. I'm so happy that that you reached out. It was actually Chantel that turned me onto your platform, I do believe, in the first place. So thank you to Chantel for that. So I'm grateful
Thank
for
you,
that.
Chantel.
She's pretty great. I'm also grateful to every single person who continues to watch, comment, share, like, talk about whatever you're doing to help support, grow the platform. It's absolutely amazing. We're getting bigger and bigger every day. And every time you do these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life is to continue making humble living, spreading the message. And the message is this. If you're in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start a lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to a meeting, pray, go to church. I don't care. Do whatever it is you got to do to get that journey started, because it is so much better than the alternative. If you have a loved one who's suffering an addiction right now, just taking the time to listen to our conversation. If you could just take 1 more minute out of your day and text that person, let them know they are loved. Use the words.
You are loved.
That little glimmer of hope just might be the thing that brings them back.